goodness.
Nope. Just have one. invite function. We're going to resend the invite to Chris, so just give us a second. Not on. Want me to send her? Bottom of that list. Down at the bottom on the right-hand side. On the white hand, the participants list.
It is?
Go all the way down to the bottom.
Okay.
Bottom, see where it says mute all. Return and see what it does. I'm gonna.
Are we still waiting on Chris?
Yeah, these microphones are crazy today. So yeah, we're working with them to get Chris on board.
Okay.
Send him a couple links. Hopefully one of them works. Chris, call in and see what's happening.
Sam, are we being recorded yet?
We've got the closed captioning and the video people doing that, and officially they won't start until we say we're ready to go.
Okay, great. So then I could ask Tom about whether or not he's a grandfather yet.
Okay, we're still having trouble getting Chris on board. Leave it up to you all if you want to get started or wait a little longer.
It's just some difficulty with Zoom. I don't know exactly what, but I think that sometimes an update tries to, there's sometimes when you log into it and update, it will mess everything up, so I don't know.
We're gonna try some. What number can I call you from? My text. Well, we're gonna set them up with something here. Stay on this phone. Paper, microphone. You want to say something, Chris?
Hello there.
Anybody can hear him? Okay, so that's how we're going to relocate your phone's right microphone. We'll go from there.
Perfect.
Okay, so it looks like we're ready to go. Kyle, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So Chair McLeod has been having some laryngitis issues. So I'm going to just be the temporary chair for this meeting. Welcome everybody to the May 28th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting for the Fire and Police and Disability Retirement Fund. Looking at the agenda, it appears that the first order of business is an administration consent item to approve the minutes of the March 19th, 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any comments or concerns for the meeting minutes as written?
No.
Okay, hearing none. Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, I have a second. All in favor of approving the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Aye. Great, thank you. The motion passes. Do we have any visitors to introduce today?
Yes, we just have Franco and Lauren, our attorneys. Other than that, it's just us.
Is Lee Burston, I don't recognize that name. Is that a visitor?
That is our captioner for today.
Thank you very much. Any public comment at today's meeting?
No comment for today.
Fantastic. Okay, looks like we're rolling right into the action items for today. The first one is a discussion of resolution number 554, the administrative rule amendments. And Sam, I'll be turning this over to you.
Yes, and I'll have Kim here next with me. She'll add some color commentary to my presentation. Okay, so FPDR seeks to update its administrative rules to expand the type of provider specialties who can act as an attending physician. This is to keep pace with the medical community and their use or referral to these providers for treatment. Over the past several years, FPDR has noticed changes in provider specialties that treat members in the emergency department, urgent care, and office visit settings. Often members are triaged and then seen by physician assistants, nurse practitioners, or naturopaths. They're also instructed to follow up with those providers after the emergency department or urgent care visit. However, our rules require that our members be treated with an MD, a DO, a doctor, a chiropractor, or a podiatrist. Those providers can be challenging to access and can result in treatment delays or breaking continuity of care that is necessary following an illness, injury, or occupational disability. Many medical providers who treat our FPDR members also treat injured employees covered under Oregon workers' compensation. Because the Oregon workers' compensation system has recognized physician assistants, nurse practitioners, and naturopaths as treating physicians for many years, our providers are confused as to why FPDR has not accepted these medical providers. This has caused some delays in treatment as providers and FPDR members seek out an MD, DO, or a chiropractor to supervise their care. So that we feel that the benefits of these rules changes will be easier and broader access to care for our members, assure continuity of care. Many of them are less expensive than an MD, and there'll be less confusion with our medical providers. And Kim, did you have any more to add to that?
I think you covered it well, Sam.
Okay.
It's a great benefit, and I think one that's going to help our members with their injuries and access to care.
And we'll walk through the, you want to share the screen there, Julie? Walk through the changes. Now, a lot of the wording that we're using these changes mirrors workers' compensation. We did that just again because our medical providers are familiar with the workers' compensation wording. Sharing the exhibits here in just a minute.
Oh, I have page 1 of the exhibit up. You want me to keep
Oh, there you go. I'm sorry. I'm looking at a different screen. Okay, so this is, we're changing the definition in several different areas with that. And what we're going to change in 5.7, 5.8, 5.9, and 5.10, all the places that have the definition of the attending physician. You'll drop down and see number B, which is the chiropractor paragraph. We're extending the period of disability or to 60 days from the date of first visit, or the period of treatment from 60 days from 30, and then also from 12 to 18 visits. Again, this mirrors workers' compensation, and that's why we up the number of visits there. We have a sentence there at the bottom that is deleted. I do not know why that was ever put there, because that's replicated in Rule 5.7.09A. It's a duplicate and doesn't belong here, so we're just striking it out, and it's found elsewhere in the rules. We're also adding paragraph C, which is a naturopath or doctor of naturopathy. There they have the same 60 days and 18 visits that the chiropractors have. Then D, we're adding physician assistant, and they have a period of 180 days from which they can provide treatment as well as authorize disability. Again, those days match what are in workers' compensation. Then if you want to flip down 2 pages, we have nurse practitioner. It's in a different part. It's an unusual thing because workers' comp doesn't include nurse practitioner under attending physician, but it does allow the nurse practitioner to provide services for 180 days, just like the physician assistant. So that's what we're looking to change here in 5.7. Any questions on that?
No, thanks.
Okay. And then just scroll down here to 5.801. Okay, 5.801 is replicated in 5.9 and 5.10. And the reason why I'm showing you this, because this did not have that strayed sentence under Part C already. So we've just are under Part B for that. But so we added C, which is naturopaths. We added D, physician assistants, and then buried down there a couple pages more under N's, we added the nurse practitioner. And so that's for 5, 8, 9, and 10. So that's what we're looking to do. Again, this brings us in line. We've had a lot of frustrations with our members who go into urgent care clinics and are treated by physician assistants, and they have to, we can't accept the physician assistant's proof of disability. And we thought that was inappropriate, so that's why we wanted to match workers' compensation. We did have a posted FAQ session for the public. No one attended. We did have a couple show interest, but they did not show up there. So that's what I have for those. Any questions about those? Any concerns?
No, I appreciate it. It does seem to nicely broaden that ability, both for the member and for the fund. Looks like a good changes. Is this something that we need to vote on today, Sam?
You have a resolution today, Resolution 554 for you to vote on today. If you want to, if you'd like to delay, I don't know, I'm not certain why we would delay it, but if you had a reason to delay, we could do that.
I mean, do you like to vote on these individually as we go, or just wait till you're done with these?
That's a whole packet. I'm not going to go through 5, 9, or 10. They match 5.8 exactly with it.
Okay.
So they're just a replication through there. And this is just one exhibit, so you're voting on the whole package for 5, 7, 8, and 9, and 10.
Okay,
Chair McLaury, may I ask Sam and Kim a question?
please.
Has Lauren or Franco or another attorney reviewed these provisions as revised?
I shared it with Franco a few months ago when we were looking at it.
Yes, I've looked at them.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any more discussion on resolution number 554?
Yeah.
Okay, seeing none, anyone care to make a motion?
So moved.
To adopt resolution 554. I will second that.
Great, thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, unanimous, and motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It looks like resolution number 555 is the next action item. Interfund loan in lieu of a tax anticipation note. So I'm not sure if that's going to be you or not, Sam.
No, definitely not me.
Definitely not. Okay.
Kim had it. Oh, there we go. Hey, everybody. For the record, Stacy Jones, Pension and Finance Manager, here today to talk to you about cash flow, everybody's favorite topic, which we generally do talk about in May at the May board meeting, because this is a good time to talk about our cash flow needs for the next fiscal year, which starts on July 1st. So I do not believe Trustee Kramer was with us when we had this discussion last year. So just as a reminder, you all know that we are, pretty much all of our expenses are funded by property tax revenues. And unfortunately, property tax revenues do not come in any sizable way until mid-November. But of course, we have to start paying benefits on July 1. Literally on July 1 is our first, $12 or $13 million pension payment. So every year we borrow money in July or August to kind of bridge that gap between the start of the fiscal year and when most of our revenues come in. And every year, since anyone can remember, we have done that by issuing tax anticipation notes, or TANs. Notes, that just means short-term bonds, and tax anticipation notes are exactly what they sound like. Short-term bonds that governments issue in anticipation of receiving tax revenues, and then you repay them when you receive the tax revenues. And because, partly because those are tax exempt, which means that those who buy the notes can keep the earnings tax-free, partly because FPDR is very creditworthy, partly because the revenue is backed by, there's a dependable revenue source to repay the funds. We have always been able to borrow TANs at a significantly lower interest rate than we could earn on the city treasury pool, which is where we dropped the money while we spent it down and waited for our tax revenue to come in. So in addition to just being necessary from a cash flow point of view, issuing TANs has always been financially advantageous. We have always been able to have enough positive arbitrage earnings to cover the cost of issuing the TANs, and then have a little bit extra on the side. All within the IRS allowable limits, of course, because they don't let us make a bunch of money on arbitrage. So that has always been the case, at least as far back as I know. Intel and Chair McLeod has been around long enough to have heard me get very nervous about this every year for probably as long as you've been on the board. But now we've had 2 years in a row where we have not made money on this deal. If I look at, so in the current year, 23-24, we paid 3.45% interest on our TANs, and for the 6 months we had those funds invested in the city treasury pool, we earned 2.77% on those funds. And in the prior year, we paid 1.9% interest on our TANs, and in the 6 months that we had that money, we only earned 1.2% in the city treasury pool. And if you look back at last year, you'll see when I was reporting this to the board that I said, well, I still think this is an anomaly, but I wouldn't be surprised if it happened again next year. I mean, one of the many signs of these apocalyptic interest rate times that we're living in is that we're just seeing really durable and wide lags between interest rate markets. I mean, there are always response lags between interest rate markets. When the Fed moves interest rates, that's normal. But they're normally sort of fleeting and small. And in this environment where honestly nobody knows if the Fed is going to raise interest rates or cut them or keep them the same, and that's been going on for years, we're now in a situation where these very short-term interest rates for things like our TANs are essentially the same as the interest rate for short-term and even medium-term interest rates. And in fact, the TANs have even been higher as they were last year. So this is a very flipped, unusual situation. Normally, the TAN rates, those very short-term tax-exempt rates would be much lower, and that has not happened now for 2 years in a row. So I've been talking with the debt manager. He and I have become really good friends over the last couple of years. And I think that when we put all this together, what I recommend to the board is that for the first time ever, we do something different, at least for next year. Because when you consider that it costs $50,000 to $80,000 to issue tax anticipation notes, because we have to pay bond counsel to review the TANs and all the disclosures, and we have to pay Moody's to rate the TANs, and even before we get into staff costs of doing all those things, it's going to cost $50,000 to $80,000. And when you consider that when we issue TANs, we have to borrow all the money we need upfront in one lump sum, I think an interfund loan is a better deal because there are no costs associated with that. And we can draw the money as we need it. We can do draws, we could do them as often as once a week, although that might, drive accounting crazy. But we could, do them once a month and draw the money just as we need it. We will lose money on that deal because to arrange that, I had to promise another fund that I could pay them 10 basis points or 0.1% more than they could earn on the city investment pool. So we will lose money on that arrangement, but I do not think we will lose as much money as we probably will if we issue TANs. So my estimate is that it'll cost us about $440,000 if we borrow this money through an interfund loan. My estimate of issuing a TAN, this is my low-end estimate, is that it would cost us about $480,000, including the issuance costs. Debt management, who probably knows more than I do about this, they estimate it's going to cost us $565,000 to issue tax anticipation notes. But either way, it's cheaper than issuing tax anticipation notes. I mean, basically, with the rates similar between an interfund loan and TANs, then the interfund loan wins because we don't have to borrow the money up front, all of it, and we don't have to pay all these issuance costs associated with TANs. Now, there is uncertainty around the TANs. There's not uncertainty around the interfund loan. because we know the spread is just going to be those 10 basis points. But there is uncertainty around TANs because when we would go to actually issue them in July or August, who knows for sure what the interest rate environment would look like. Possibly it wouldn't be this bad. Possibly it would be worse. So to me, in addition to being less expensive, the interfund loan is also less risky. We know we're going to lose these 10 basis points, but that's the limit of our exposure. And there is no limit to our exposure if we go out in this TAN market. And so I think for this, one more year, this is what is the most financially prudent thing to do while we wait for interest rate environments to return to normal, should they ever return to normal. Or, I still believe eventually they will. The fundamental laws of economics have not changed. But so that is why the resolution before you today is asking you to authorize an interfund loan for the first time rather than a TAN issue. City council also has to authorize that loan, so we would bring that to them later after you guys authorized it. And I've negotiated a loan with the Parks finance manager to have a loan from the Parks Capital Fund, which, as you would guess by the name, is used to fund multi-year capital projects in the parks. So they can easily, do without $45 million or so for a couple of months. And I am grateful for the partnership of the finance managers across the city who are really willing to work together and collaborate to save the taxpayers' money when we can. So they could have asked for more than 10 basis points, but they were willing to just do 10 basis points to make it worth their trouble, because we do have to, it is a pain for them. We have to go to council and we have to do a bunch of journal entries and move money around. So that is what I'm bringing to the board, but I imagine you might have questions since we've never done this before.
So the
Jim
other,
McLaury, may I ask Stacy a question?
Oh,
Please.
Of course.
Will we, that is FPDR, be represented by council in that sort of interfund negotiation, or have we decided council isn't necessary?
No, I just directly negotiated with the Parks finance manager. We didn't employ counsel in that negotiation. It was essentially a financial negotiation. He and I negotiated it. The debt manager was sort of involved, but the Parks finance manager and I have known each other a long time, so we just sort of did it ourselves. The debt manager thought we'd have to pay a lot more than 1/10 of, than 10 basis points, but Parks was sold on doing it for that relatively small. I can't imagine we could have got it for less, honestly.
And how will that agreement be documented?
So there are very official loan agreement documents that the city has in our financial policies for interfund loans that you just have to fill out as a matter of course. They're part of the interfund loan financial policies. So debt management oversees that process. So now that Parks and I have agreed on the terms, they've written them up. I just saw them in my email, actually, right before this meeting for review by all the parties. And the city attorney's office will look at them because they look at everything that goes to council. I see Franco nodding. And then, and actually, Franco, this did hit your office because we were making sure there was no legal problem with the Parks Fund lending us this money as well. So we have run it through those folks. Do you have anything you want to add to that, Franco?
Yeah, I was just going to say, just for the board's benefit, there were several of us who looked at it. I did for FPDR. There was at least another of my colleagues who looked at it, I think, on the finance side, just to make sure that we thought the arrangement was legal.
Franco, this might be a more technical conversation than we want to have in this setting, and I'm content if you say that, but how do the conflicts rules affect those discussions?
Like the Oregon government ethics rules, or?
Well, I was just thinking, I'm sort of wondering, I think of you as FPDR's attorney, but as a city attorney, I don't know whether the city can divide itself that way so that Franco can represent one part of the city and some other city attorney can represent some other part of the city.
I would say so simply because FPDR has its, the FPDR fund, and the city otherwise is funded by the general fund. So I don't see and I guess the other thing I would say, trustee, is there are other instances where, and in fact, I'm involved in at least one of them where where our office has to have, the city attorney's office has to have walls between and among its colleague, the attorneys in the office. For example, like I staff the civil service board, and that I'm there as the board's advisor, not representing the city itself, even though one of my colleagues might be there representing the city as a party. So I appreciate the question. These situations do come up from time to time.
And Trustee Kramer, if you're also thinking perhaps about kind of fiduciary responsibilities and negotiating financial arrangements, I mean, that is something that happens for all the finance managers across the city all the time, where we are negotiating with each other. And, we have to negotiate with all the central service funds around all kinds of things. Like, we're negotiating transactions with each other all the time. And we do those directly with each other, where our interests are not divided in that sense. I have no interest in enriching the Parks Department. But we do, the central functions do sort of play a referee umpire role when necessary. In this case, it's debt management. In other cases, it's the budget office. There are situations where bureaus just cannot agree, and then they'll come in to sort of umpire and come up with a fair solution. In this case, nobody has to lend me money. They could all say, nope, go pound sand. And I don't, unless the mayor told people to lend me money. I mean, I don't think that there's anything to referee here. That management can't make other funds lend us money. But certainly they wouldn't allow something unfair to happen either. And that's sort of the role of those central functions.
So I gather, if I could rephrase that so I understand what you're saying, this sort of thing happens routinely among city agencies, this lending. And it's possible, I mean, it's not likely, we could authorize this and they could still say no, but the first step for you to go forth, Stacy, is to have this resolution authorized. Is that accurate?
Yep, exactly. And they won't say no. I mean, they won't say no. They have no reason to.
Right.
And I think Stacy briefly said, but just remember, the final say on this is with the city council. So it does go through here. We continue through the negotiations and have the debt manager look at it, and then it goes in front of city council, who balances the entire city, FPDR and parks, and making sure that this is equitable between the two and is able to be done. And so they have their option of bringing in more attorneys to take a look at it.
I have just one small question, and that is that if the situations with interest rates change, and in a future year again, TANs seem to be the clear winner, is there any difficulty in returning to that approach?
No, and in fact, that's what we would anticipate doing, at least now, is that we would anticipate returning to issuing TANs next year. Of course, this keeps going on and on and on, but hopefully next year we would be back to issuing TANs and making some money on this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I think procedurally, I got this a little backwards. We're supposed to make a motion and then go to discussion. I think we just had a good discussion. Unless there is any further that anybody would like to add, are we ready for a motion?
Chair McClower, I would just add, I thought it was, I agree, I thought it was a really interesting discussion, and I commend staff, Stacy and her staff, for sort of looking at it, to keeping an eye on it to see what made the most sense and reasoning it out for us.
Agreed. Agreed.
If you would entertain a motion, I'm sorry.
I
Yes,
don't
sir.
have any concerns. I'll make a motion.
To To adopt resolution 555.
Correct, yes. I don't know if I'm supposed to
Correct.
announce that or not, but
And to
yes,
move
to
forward to
adopt,
city council.
yeah, resolution 555. Is there a second?
Second.
Great. So now I would ask for any discussion. I think we're well along that way. And all in favor of adopting resolution 555, say aye.
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 Okay, appears the resolution passes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, board.
So indeed, the next action item is resolution 556, amend online business system contract. I'm guessing that is going to be you, Sam?
Yes, it will. So again, we're here to look at making an amendment to the online business systems contract. Online business systems provide systems design and maintenance and programming services to support our database. The database houses all the data about our members, disability claims, and pensions. It is also used to calculate all benefits due to disabled members and retirees. Basically, it's the core of the services that we offer to our members. The contract is in effect now. It began on October 15, 2021, and will go through October 14, 2026, with a not-to-exceed value of $385,000. Due to several large unexpected projects requiring changes to the database and significant work by OBS, or Online Business Systems, compensation paid to OBS will soon exceed the amount allotted by the contracts. We're just a hair shy of that $385,000, and we still have about 2 years left on this contract. We had 5 large unexpected one-time projects, which accounted for about half the hours Online Business Systems spent working on the database and providing services to FPDR since October 2021. The projects that were big and unexpected were onboarding the 2 MCOs, Providence and Majoris. This is the first time in 13 years we've onboarded an MCO, and we onboarded 2 back to back, and there's a lot of work that has to be done so we can sync data back and forth between them, get the billing structure done correctly. Providence has a very complex billing structure, so we're having to do a lot of work to the database to support that billing and payment. The next one is a W-4P tax calculation. Everybody knows what the W-4 is. And Tom, since you're retired, you may know what the W-4P is. It's telling us how much you want withheld out of your federal income tax going forward. Well, the IRS decided they're going to make the W-4 and the W-4P extremely complex to complete. So if any of you want to make changes, go look at IRS websites on how to complete it. It is almost need an accountant to help you. Probably do need an accountant or tax specialist to help you complete it, where it used to be fairly simple. So we had to set up our system to allow us to handle those new W-4Ps coming through, and we have to be able to handle the old W-4Ps because they're allowed to grandfather those in. So we had to make quite a few adjustments to the database to handle those tax offsets or the tax withholding under the old W-4P and the new W-4P. We also, in the last year or two, replaced our check generation software. It's not necessarily check generation, but it's a software that sort of hooks our database up to all the financial people so we can pass through all the correct data to get benefits issued, whether they're direct deposit or actual paper checks. Again, that was something that was unexpected. The prior check software quit supporting the version we were on, and to update a version, they're going to triple the cost for it. And we went and found another one that was probably a little bit cheaper than what the prior one was before, and it's doing the job well with it. But we had to do a lot of changes to the system to sync in with the new check generation software. The last other big one was city server migration. Our city, under the Bureau of Technology Services, had to upgrade their servers. They were many years old, and so they need to bring them up to 2020 or 2023 levels on the server. So we had to do an intense testing through the database to making sure that the database could function on those new servers, and all the information that we were bringing in and giving out and benefits we were getting out were not impacted by that server change. So that took quite a few hours to run all those tests. So those 5 different projects, again, as I said, counted for half of the OBS time. So we're asking for an additional $250,000 to cover the OBS contract and services through October 14, 2026. We anticipate potentially 2 large projects that will require some OBS time, but we don't anticipate 5, and we don't see any risk that there will be other large ones. The first one is Wells Fargo Financial Feed. They're changing what data they want from us and how they want it from us in order to do direct deposits. They haven't given us all the requirements yet, but we anticipate this potentially pretty big, and I'm not going to go into a lot of the details until we get the requirements, but it could require changes to database and database security to levels that we haven't had it before for us to retain all the banking information. And then there's a possibility with the change in the form of government and change of some of the structure in the city that some of our feeds that we take in from our SAP city personnel program may have to change due to some structure. We're not certain. That may be nothing, and it might be medium size, but we just have to wait and see when that team is done and how that works. So again, that's what we're asking for, is to increase it to $250,000 to cover us for the remaining about 2.5 years on the contract.
Okay, great. Thank you, Sam. To do this correct this time, before we move into discussion, could we get a motion to adopt resolution number 556?
I would make that motion.
I will second that.
Great, okay. Is there any discussion about the information that Sam just presented regarding this motion, this resolution? And I'll go ahead and start because I have several questions, if that's okay.
Go for it.
So Sam, you mentioned that OBS, this contract started in 2021. It was prior to my time on the board. Were they the service that was used by FPDR prior to 2021, or what was happening before this contract as far as the software and the database that was being used?
OBS was the prior contract. We went out had to go out and bid because it had been there for 10 years. So this was a renewed contract. Or
Okay,
not a renewed contract, it was a new contract with them.
right. So one of the things that I'm sort of trying to understand, I know for other bureaus in the city, this type of thing, unless I'm probably misunderstanding it to some degree, the scope of the work would be done through BTS. Was
No.
this something? Excuse me?
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Go ahead and finish. I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I'm just curious. I guess it's just that we are a different beast than some of the other bureaus, certainly as far as having our own funding in that sense. I'm just curious if there was any element that could have been or that is done that they sort of dovetail with things that BTS does for other bureaus.
No, this is a proprietary application built for and by FPDR for FPDR. It was probably built, I want to say 15 or more years ago with it. It was a database, and so we built it ourselves and have to maintain it. BTS will do some background stuff and will help us maintain the connections with the other systems in the city, but it is ours to own and ours to maintain.
Is this the program that that your staff uses when members request their pension estimates?
Yes, I mean, we get information from this program. This houses all our data, and if we need that data for anything, including pension estimates, it pulls information out of there.
And the reason I ask is just I know there's quite a backlog of members wanting or waiting for pension estimates, and I was curious if some of these projects that were unexpected maybe are the cause for some of the backlog.
No, that's a separate one. I could have, when we get back to the FPDR update section, have Stacy come in and give you an update on the pension estimates and what we're doing to address that backlog, but that has nothing to do with OBS at this point. We actually have had OBS help us create a tool to estimate or automate part of the estimate process, but it's still, that was a while back. We still need to we may make changes in the future, but this issue that we're doing today had nothing to do with it.
Okay. And not to disparage anything OBS has done, but we're kind of stuck with them, it sounds like, in the sense that they were the ones that have created the software that is being used for this database system. Not that stuck with them, but it just would make the most sense to continue with them, it sounds like. Would that be accurate description.
And when we did this in 2021, that was some of the decisions that we made at that time, is they have an intimate knowledge of this. And part of the challenge is, especially with technical contracts, when you move to a new company, they have to come up to speed. And so there's a learning curve to where you don't get a lot of productivity out of them while they're learning the software, learning the database and how we're using it. It's not to say that it's off the table. The next time when this comes up in 2026, we'll make that decision at that time. What's the best way to do it?
Yeah,
One of
that's
the,
sort of the issue we've had with SAP
yeah,
in the Bureau.
yeah. And I will
Thank you.
let you know, because we have a new, just hired a new business systems analyst, and they are our technical person who oversees this application in the database with it. And I have asked her, as she's going through it, can she bring some of the work in-house? Have
Right.
we farmed too much of it out, and can she do some of it? And I'll go a little bit over her credentials here in a minute. But so that's one of the things I've asked her to do, and also ask her to evaluate our relationship with OPS, because we have not done that.
That was going to be one of my questions. And that person's title is Systems Analyst. Is that what you said?
Business Systems Analyst 3.
Thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the resolution? Okay, hearing none. I would like to take a vote. So everyone in favor of adopting resolution number 556, please say aye.
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 Any opposition? Okay, thank you. Motion passes.
And I will share with you the final amendment, because it's now going through OBS for signatures. When they sign it and we sign, and the city signs it, I'll share you with the final. It's just a one-page contract amendment, and I'll share that with you.
Okay. So it looks like, unless anybody has any additional information, that the next items on the agenda are some informational, excuse me, items. The first being members transitioning from disability to retirement status. Who's the lead on that? Is it Kim?
Hello? Oh, very good.
You are?
All right, well, thank you. I'm Kimberly Mitchell, FPDR Disability Claims Manager. I forgot to say that earlier, so forgive me. And so you may recall, trustees, that during the January 23rd board meeting, Lauren Dowenhauer, FPDR Outside Counsel, shared information about a new tax law, 139C, that's going to be going into effect January 1st, 2027. And that law would create a tax benefit for people who have transitioned from a work-related disability benefit to a pension, to a retirement. And during that conversation, Trustee Kolb asked if we had any historical data or data on the members who would be impacted by that trend, by that new rule when it comes into effect. So what I've provided here are just the numbers in three different sets. And these numbers represent the number of members, the pay amount, which is something I'll talk a little more about, but the number of members in each category. So I'm gonna just dive into the top block of numbers, and these are members who are currently receiving monthly disability benefits. And just as background, again, these are members who suffered service-connected injuries. They are unable to return to police or fire employment. They are permanently restricted from work, any other work outside of their police and fire duties, or they can do some work. And I'll just break that down. We have permanent total. Those are the people, the classification of our members who cannot return to their police and fire work. But we've also conducted a vocational analysis, and they are not able to pursue earnings of a third of their base pay. They lack maybe transferable skills, or their injuries are so severe that they could not go out and look for other work. So those we call permanent and total. They're typically paid, they are paid 75% of their of their base pay until they retire. And so of the members currently receiving that benefit, we have 4 that fit that category. And then we have what we call permanent and partial. And these are people, again, fire and police officers who can't go back to regular work, but they can do some work. Their physical limitations don't prevent them from pursuing other employment. So we conduct a vocational analysis at the time we learn that they are permanently restricted from returning to work. And we do the assessment, and if they can, by their physical abilities, their skills and abilities, pursue work earning 1/3 of their base pay, then their benefit is reduced to 50%. So we have 14 members currently in that category, and those members are charged with pursuing other employment to offset the benefits that we are paying from the fund. And then we have a category of those members that are permanent partial. They've met that SGA designation, and they're getting 25%. And that typically occurs when their earnings are very high. Their outside earnings are very high. They are by law, by our rules, granted that minimum of 25% regardless of how much they earn. So that is the category that we have for them, and we have 3 of those members. And so these members, it appears, will all benefit from that new rule. These members' retirements are projected at this time to start anywhere from 2024 to 2041. There's a little asterisk here, and at the bottom of the sheet that I provided, the reason there is a range of their projected retirement dates or their mandatory retirements is because anytime our members earn less or are paid less than 75%, when they're reduced to 50%, and then their outside income is offset, which further reduces the benefit they receive, their years of service accrual is extended. And I invite Stacy here, or anybody, Stacy, to chime in if I'm not making that clear for you, because that's where we intersect, and I hand that off to Stacy's team. But so these are the numbers of current members receiving monthly disability benefits who may benefit from that new rule when it goes into effect. And then we have members who transitioned this past fiscal year. You just wanted to know about that. We've had 3 who have transitioned. One of them was a Tier 1 member who was being paid, or 2 of them were Tier 1 members. So we still, again, have those that are projected out because of their earnings, but 2 of them were Tier 1. One of them was a permanent partial SGA in that category. And then the last are just, we look back at a recent history, 5-year history from fiscal year 2019 to 2023, and we currently have 13 members, well, we had 13 members who transitioned from monthly disability to retirement. And at the various pay rates, 3 at 75%, 6 at 60%, 4 at 50%, and none at the 25% category. And that 60% is the base pay that was due to Tier 1 members. They had their own separate category of pay for those members. So that's where the 60% is. We don't currently have any active Tier 1, I'm pretty sure, that they've all transitioned to retirement. So yes, we will have some members who may benefit from that new tax law, and we don't we don't know all the parameters. That new law will have some guidelines that come with it, and will it be retroactive or that, I think, is to be determined. But the short of it is for you is that we will have some members who will benefit from that tax law when it becomes effective. Any questions?
No questions, but thank you so much for the data.
You're welcome.
I would second that. Thank you very much. I just came across one tiny question in the example at the very bottom, Kim.
Mm-hmm.
You said that this particular example is one of 19 years of service, 75% of their base pay during the first year and 50% thereafter. Would that be someone who's that SGA person who got further employment? That's why it would bump down to 50%?
Correct.
Thank you. Just wanted to double check that.
Yes.
Yes, great. I appreciate the information.
You're welcome. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
It looks like the next informational item is FPDR summary of expenditures. I'm guessing that's going to be us, Stacy.
All right, I'm back to talk about the expenditure report and how we're looking as we come in towards the end of the fiscal year. Just really probably two things to mention. The first is that property tax revenue is right on target. I would be surprised if we are more than 1% off, so that is good and nice. Secondly, that as trustee Kramer pointed out very early on, we will overspend our original personnel budget. This is a citywide problem happening to every single bureau because of the way health insurance is budgeted and costed back to the bureaus. There was a miscommunication from central HR about how that was going to be handled. The method is changing, and so everybody in the city had this problem. And then we also had an unanticipated retirement with a large vacation payout, although that was a smaller issue. But not to fear, you don't see it in this chart, but we were able to shift funds from fund contingency into personnel as part of the spring budget adjustment to make sure that we don't overspend in our personnel category there to cover those additional costs. But other than that, not really anything noteworthy to point out, but are there any questions?
Just a quick observation. I know as usual, the FPDR3 pension contributions are lagging.
Yes.
We expect that last one to come in next month, that bill.
Yeah, so actually they have it already. They've sent it to us and we've approved it and sent it back to them. So it should be in May for that Q3 bill for both police and fire. It is getting better as the year has gone on. So, normally we would expect that Q3 bill to be hitting in April. So now they're only a month behind. And of course, the Q4 bill has to get in on time because we have to close out the fiscal year.
And you really anticipate to catch up in $20 million there?
Yeah, we're going to be really pretty close to target. I think we'll be $1 million or $2 million under. Because we have that Q3 bill and it has us just, let me look at the total because I can't quite see it on the screen. With the Q3 bills, which like I said, we know the amounts even though they're not in SAP yet. Let me look at our totals. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. Yeah, we're like almost at 30 million with the Q3. We're at like 29, somewhere between 29 and 30 million with the Q3, and our budget is a little over 40.
Right.
So I think we're going to overspend our fire budget a little and underspend our police budget a little. But between the two, it'll kind of net out.
And Stacy, on that topic, are those FPDR3 contributions determined as a percent of payroll?
Yes.
So were recent increases in payroll known at the time you set this up, or did you just have a good sense of it and include a margin for that?
Yeah, all of the recent increases were known when we established the budget. I'm trying to think if there was anything that wasn't known. I don't believe so, because I think we had all the details of even the fire contract before we finalized this budget. So we have a pretty accurate model. It's getting a little harder to manage because of the promotion rates of the FPDR3s now. The drift, we're still trying to get a handle on that spread of the FPDR3s who are younger through the workforce because they are being promoted at a much more rapid clip now. So that's an element that we can't predict necessarily, although we can model it, of course. And then but the most unpredictable element of this is overtime, because we do have to pay PERS contributions on overtime, and that is much more difficult to predict for both us and the Police and Fire Bureau.
Okay, thank you. And I also see the return to work, light duty is been a bunch of zeros.
That's
Does
right.
it also have a lag?
They sent us I think they sent us Q1 and Q2 at once. I'd have to check in with my staff a couple of months ago. There were some delays in our own office, I think Kim had reassigned which of the disability analysts were approving that. It's always a difficult thing to do, honestly, because the data comes over in bad form. But they are billing us for it, and you'll see, I think, 3 quarters when May closes for those as well. So some of the delays on that side were caused by us as well.
But there is some catch-up anticipated here. Okay.
Yes, yes, and those amounts are always much smaller, but there is. And I can't remember what the numbers look like, if they're significantly different from past years, but I don't think so.
Thank
So
you.
they should be close to budget.
Stacy, would you remind us about the roughly $14 million in the contingency line item? Was that, I can't remember, was that based on sort of change of government potential expenses? Or was that a typical sort of number for that line item?
That's a great question. That is a pretty typical number for that line item. We generally carry, around 7%-ish in fund contingency. Every year when I ask the board to adopt the budget, I will lay out for you guys, I'll kind of lay out all the risks that I see and try to monetize them and make sure that that is gonna cover all the risks that I see. And so none of that was really related to the change of government in this current fiscal year. We do have some extra money in contingency for next year's budget that is related to the change of government, just a little bit more than we would normally have in contingency for that. But yeah, every fund in the city that has its own fund, we need to sit on some money to just manage any unexpected situations. Make sure we don't go negative.
Right, okay, anybody else have any questions? Thank you, Stacy. It looks like the last, second to last informational item is the FPDR update. Sam?
Stacy to go ahead and give you just a quick update on the pension estimates.
Great.
Yeah, since I wasn't planning to do that today, but since Trustee McClary asked about it. So we have made a ton of progress. Whether we can sustain it, I do not know. So I was just, while you all were talking about the OBS contract, I'm trying to half listen and half kind of look at where we are right now. So we had about 150 estimates in the queue back in late January, early February, as we were coming off of budget. And as you guys may remember, the same staff who do all the finance tasks, prepare the budget and, project cash flow and do all the finance things, also prepare pension estimates. So as we came off of budget, they pivoted their attention to estimates. And really only one analyst was able to really pivot a lot of her attention to that, while the other analyst was getting caught up on bank and database SAP reconciliations. But so now I'm happy to report that we're down to only 31 in our queue, which is still not ideal, but is a heck of a lot better than 150. So we have 31 estimates in our queue right now, 16 police and 15 fire. 6 of those are more than 6 months old. So that's pretty old. And those are because they've asked for dates really pretty far out. Of those 31 estimates that are in our queue, 9 of those have asked to see at least one date is a November 2024 date, because that's a 27 payday month. So those are our most urgent ones right now that we want to get out, are those 9. But we don't have anyone waiting for a June estimate, which is good since it's May 28th. Although I do see that Beth is in my email that somebody called today asking for a June estimate. So that person is waiting, but he just called today. And we don't have any that we know of fire folks waiting for a November estimate because of the 6-month retire rehire timeline. So that has been a complicating, a difficult factor that will never repeat. And so Chief Gillespie and I have talked about this, but fire is requiring 6-month notice to take advantage of the retire rehire program, and Trustee McClary might be able to talk more about this. So, but that means that fire members who wish to retire in November of 2024, which is a 27 pay date month, have to give notice in May that they want to do that. And that just happened to lay right on top of all the estimates for folks who want to retire in June, which is also a 27 payday month. So just when we had this magic moment to get caught up, we got double whammied from on the fire side because of that 6 month. So when Chief Gillespie was like, "Is there anything I can do to help?" I was like, could you not? Could it be like a 5 month requirement or a 4 month requirement? That would help. And so we did talk about, what could be done about that. But I don't think that's a situation that will ever repeat. It just happens to be that June and November happen to be that same distance apart. It was just a coincidence. But we did get all of those out to everyone at fire if they told us that they needed it for that retire, rehire reason. So that's where we are right now. 31 waiting. 9 of those are urgent in the sense that they've asked for November, and that's pretty soon. They've also asked for other dates that are further out, and 6 of those are more than 6 months old. And we also, at this point, consider those urgent because that's really long time. Even though those folks have asked for retirement in 2029 or 2030, we still want to get those out so that people can plan. So for me now, the question is, can we maintain this? And it's just been a massive workload, and it just depends on, and now we're headed into summer, which is very busy for my finance staff. It's evaluation year, so we have all the actuarial schedules to do, all the usual audit work. June is a 27 payday month, so we have lots of retirements to calculate. And so can we maintain it? That we're trying a method where we're dedicating like a chunk of every week to working on it. Things have a way of coming up and disrupting that, but we're still experimenting with whether we can maintain this or if we need to add staff or technology resources. But at least we're mostly caught up right now. Not quite. Still got 31 in the queue.
That's great. And thanks to you and to the analyst who's been taking on that workload. I am curious if there's anything with this renewed contract with ODS, if there's any way we could add a layer onto, and it may not be applicable, but to the work that analyst is doing, if they could add another layer to the software that makes it an easier job to do the estimates. That may not be what the direction of what their work is, but if there was a way to automate it, make it a more of an automated job that is not so labor heavy for the analyst, I would encourage that individual to get back to us about any way that could be an easier job than having to do it the way it's currently being done.
Yeah, and that is, we talked about this last September. That issue of if we need to throw more resources at this, is it people or is it technology? And to me, it seems like it should be technology. And so that's something we have to revisit with OBS. And then we've had this transition with the business systems analyst, and they had higher priority projects. But we are going to get back to this. 5 years ago when we had OBS, or maybe it's not that long ago, but a few years ago when we had them add the functionality we have right now, there was this general feeling that had gone as far as they could take it in terms of automating it. And that did make a big difference, believe it or not. But I personally think that more could be done. And so we do want to do that. It's just a matter of prioritizing it with other tasks, and we have a new business system analyst. Another thing that I would like to see us do, if possible, is update the online calculator with the help of OBS, or perhaps with the help of some folks over in what used to be OMF in our service area. You're going to trade off accuracy a bit for that, because the way you guys get paid is unbelievably complex. And once you ask individual fire or police folks to input their own pay, as crazy as this sounds, like none of them actually know their own pay. And that's understandable, given the way that you are paid, let alone know all the 20 different ways it will change in the upcoming years. But I think we could do better with that online calculator also. So those are things I would like to see happen, yes.
And one of the things that we've looked at going forward do we could potentially bring in a consultant? So it wouldn't be OBS, it wouldn't be us, but somebody else that can come in and look at this estimation process, how we can improve it and how we can automate it and have them so they're not, that's their sole focus. That would be like an RFP type of situation. Here's our problem. Come in and tell us how to solve it. And that may be the most efficient way, but it does come with a price tag. So we will, this has been on our list. I just made notes. We'll make sure it gets on that list going forward. But I think there's that third option of an outside consultant.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, OBS, essentially, they are programmers. That's what they know how to do. And you really have to lay it all out for them to program it. They're not going to design a system. So having someone help design a system might be useful also. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, switch it over to me for FPDR updates. I've got a few here to go through. Like we've been talking about our new mysterious business systems analyst. We just hired Lily Acevedo. I think she's been here, 2 weeks now? And she has hit the ground running. The challenge with it is that she did not have any chance to overlap with her predecessor, Julie Crisp. Julie retired, and it took us a couple weeks before we could get Lily on board. But Julie is available, and we contract with Julie to help and train Lily. But Lily comes to us with a lot of experience in databases, database coding. She's done a lot of the coding herself. She understands databases and understands all the different coding languages that could be used for it. She was a program analyst at USC and for Oregon State. She's also been a technical project manager to where she's led a lot of large projects. That's above and beyond just the coding that goes with a project, and has a past history of an IT help desk technician, which is really great. She knows how to work with our staff and problem solve with the staff and with some of our members who have portal problems. So she brings that skill set. So she's got the broad skill set of programming, databases, running projects, as well as doing all the miscellaneous IT help desk stuff. And part of her responsibilities as a business systems analyst is she keeps FPDR operational. She does that by maintaining, enhancing, and updating our database. We have a member web portal, and we have some other minor FPDR specific applications that she's entrusted to keep running. She provides custom and regular reports to us because a lot of times the reports we do simple is like the one we did for you, Christopher, today, but there's some more complex ones that we share out with the Police and Fire Bureau and for other parties. She will also support the staff and members by troubleshooting, helping train, coach them on how to do almost anything technical in the office. She'll work with our BTS if there's problems with our systems, problems with anything happening that we cannot, that impact our ability to work, or with the member portal. And the big thing that we're going to have her do is help us guide to the future of what we're looking to do, identify technologies that'll improve efficiency, help us better support our members, and allow our staff to better meet our service expectations for our members. And this is where we put in for the estimates coming in that will fall under that. We'll have her take a look at that and see what she thinks we can do. And, should we go the OBS route, consultant route? I think that's going to be too complex for her individually to take on for the estimates, but she can lead the project for that. And lastly, she manages the projects. There's a lot of different projects that fall underneath all of these other tasks that she does. There's project methodology. She's very familiar with that. She's able to tailor it to large projects and small projects, what we do. So, our database is the life of the Bureau. Make sure everybody gets their benefits, allows us to track and make sure we're managing claims and pensions correctly. And that is part of her job, is to keep that operational. I've been impressed because, like I said, she's had to learn this job on her own. She's reached out to everybody. She's already made connections and contacts within the city and with OBS to help her learn the job and begin working with them. So it's exciting to have her on board. We mentioned a couple times change in the city government. Just a quick reminder that we are going to put the effect of the service area model in effective July 1. So there will be reshuffling at the management level. Fortunately, not me, but above me, who I report to, my reporting structure, all that will take effect on July 1st. FPDR will formally become a part of the budget and finance service area. That was a good choice for us to be there because the finance and service area has a good understanding of how the FPDR fund works and how the finances work. And there's some good synergy between the two of us with that. We do have a deputy city administrator who I'll report to and who will oversee that finance and budget and finance area. That's Jonas Biley. He was a former debt manager. Stacy's talking about doing a lot of work with debt managers. So fortunately, he has a very good understanding of FPDR and FPDR funding. So even though he's been in the private sector for the past 4 or 5 years, he's coming back to the city and brings that knowledge with him with that. Overall, the changes should have minimal impact on FPDR and our members. I'm probably the one person that's going to be impacted the most, and I also feel it's my responsibility in making sure that this does not impact the staff or the members. I think the members will not see any of this change coming down, impacting what we do, how we serve them. Same thing with our staff. Trustee elections, just again a reminder, for police and fire trustees are up on December 31st. So in October, we'll start the process. We'll go into more depth in our September meeting of what that process is and how we do that. We've been talking about comparing FPDR and to workers' comp, and I've said we have a bunch of documents where we're going to put those together and then put them out onto that Dropbox like we did with the pension information. So you'll have a chance to look at all the past studies and information that has been generated in FPDR about comparing workers' comp to the FPDR disability plan. What else we have? So the vacant citizen trustee position, that's sort of hit. I haven't had a time because we've been hiring and training the new business systems analyst and a few other things. So that I'm going to renew my efforts in June to see what we can do to recruit a new citizen trustee. Again, the hardest part we have is with all this governmental change, there are so many different committees, so many different commissions helping create this government change that we've exhausted the pool of people that we usually would like to volunteer for this stuff. So we have to get creative, and I have some ideas, and I've got some people in some of the commissioner's office willing to help us with that. Future meeting agenda. So July 23rd is our next meeting. We have nothing scheduled for it at this time. So July is usually an off month, and we'll keep it open unless you have any ideas of what you'd like to do, because we do have a sort of our list of meeting topics that we've reviewed several times, and that's we've talked about forming a committee to review the FPDR2 pension plan, discussion on soliciting a study to compare FPDR disability program, the Oregon Workers' Comp program, look over the FPDR strategic plan, and Board of Trustees handbook and review. So I don't know if you want to do any of those for July, or if you have any ideas. You don't have to have them now. I'll send out a request, and we usually make the decision by about mid-June whether or not we'll have the July meeting with that, or at least I'll say that we have none and then ask your opinion on that. So I don't know if you have any thoughts now for the July meeting. And then September 24th, that meeting will have the state of FPDR, and I'm certain there'll be some other topics that will come through on that. I'm done with everything I've got, Kyle.
Great. I got that seems to be the end of the agenda. Unless anybody has anything they'd like to add, I'll hold the air for a minute if anybody does.
Sorry if this was addressed while I was away enjoying the the quality of Comcast service. But do we have any update on the Majoris contract that Kim reported on last meeting?
I'll have Kim come run up here real quick.
Thanks. Hello. I think you can hear me now? Very good. Yeah, thanks for asking. Update, we are enrolling members. That's a process that we're going through right now, getting them transitioned. Those who have providers who are already on the panel have been notified, and they're just kind of transitioning as they should with Majoris on the back end. So lots of communication right now between the members, the disability analyst and Majoris, but we are moving right along. And so far it's been smooth sailing. We'll have some members whose providers are not on the Majoris panel, but they're going through what is called a credentialing process, where they will work with the doctor to see if they are willing to follow particular rules that are needed for treatment of the members, and where they are, they will be credentialed to continue to treat the members. For those that decide they don't want to follow those rules, then we're going to work with the members to see if we can find someone who will do that, follow the FPDR and MCO rules. So it's going well right now. So thank you for asking.
Anybody have anything else?
No, thank you, Kyle, for handling the meeting. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. Looks like we've come to the end today. Thank you, everybody, for participating and your time, and meeting is adjourned. Take care, everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Occasionally, where sometimes those